The Bible says in Hebrews 9 verse 27, it's appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment. There's no second chances after death, no do-overs, no time to think it over. If you died right now, today, do you know where you'd spend eternity? Jesus didn't show me these things to scare people. He showed me because He loves us. My name is Brandon. I'm 52 years old and I live in Toledo, Ohio. 3 months ago, I died for 6 minutes. What I saw during those 6 minutes? Well, it's going to sound crazy, but I need to tell you because what Jesus showed me about what happens right after we die is nothing like what most people think. As I begin to speak these words, they weigh heavy on my chest, not because of fear but because of truth. I had always brushed off talk about faith as something for later, when I was older, when life slowed down, when I felt ready. Yet the moment my heart stopped, all those excuses dissolved into nothing. In those 6 minutes, I discovered that faith isn't a theory or a Sunday ritual. It's the deepest reality of our existence. I remember floating above my body, watching the frantic movements of people trying to bring me back. But the most striking thing wasn't what I saw, it was what I felt. An overwhelming awareness of my own life choices pressed in on me. All the times I had delayed, doubted, or lived as if eternity wasn't real rose up before me like silent witnesses. It wasn't condemnation, it was clarity. And then, there was Him. Jesus didn't appear to me as a distant judge, but as someone who already knew every failure and still reached for me. In that presence, I couldn't hide behind excuses or habits. I realized my faith had been casual, half-hearted, a box I checked a few times a year. In His gaze, I understood that every moment we live is an invitation, an opportunity to decide who we truly belong to. Those 6 minutes changed the texture of my soul. They were not just an interruption of life, but a revelation of truth. I came back with the certainty that eternity isn't something far away. It's right at the edge of every heartbeat. The moment I turned and saw Him, I didn't need an introduction. My soul simply knew, this was Jesus. Not the Sunday school painting. Not the idea of Jesus I had casually carried in my mind. No, this was someone real, alive, and utterly overwhelming in gentleness. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. Just standing there, I felt as though every memory, every hidden thought, every motive in my heart was laid bare before Him. But instead of shame, what I felt was understanding. Not approval, but compassion. You know, I used to think God would be disappointed in me. That if I ever stood before Him, He'd list off all the ways I failed. Every time I got angry at Katie, every time I lied to make myself look better, every time I pushed faith to the side. But Jesus didn't do that. He looked at me like someone who had already seen it all and still wanted me. He reached out His hand. His voice wasn't loud, but it struck deeper than anything I've ever heard. Come with me, Brandon. I didn't hesitate. I couldn't. The moment I touched His hand, the world around me disappeared. It wasn't walking, it was being carried. The hospital, my co-workers, my pain, gone. And in its place, peace. Not the kind of peace you get from a good day at work or a vacation. No, this was soul deep. It was as if the noise of life had finally been turned off, and I could hear what really mattered. I didn't know where we were going, but I trusted Him completely. There was no fear, no question, just this sense that I was finally seen for who I truly was, and still loved. And then, Jesus turned to me and said, I need to show you something. Jesus didn't explain with words at first. He simply lifted His hand, and before us appeared 2 doors, not physical doors, but realms. One radiated peace so pure it made me want to run into it. Light poured out like warmth that could reach every crack of the soul. The other door was darker, not terrifying, but heavy, sad. A grief that hung in the air like fog. I watched as souls approached. Some ran joyfully toward the light, like they had been waiting their whole lives. Others hesitated, faces filled with uncertainty or sorrow, and drifted slowly toward the darker place. They weren't forced. They knew where they belonged. And that realization broke me. I turned to Jesus, confused. Why do some go one way and others another? He looked at me, not with anger, but sorrow. Because of one decision, He said. Did they choose me while they were alive? There was no list of sins. No scoreboard of good versus bad. It came down to one relationship, with him or without him. I suddenly realized that all my efforts to be a good person had never answered that question. I had never truly made that choice. Then Jesus showed me something else. Scenes from earth. A woman crying, talking to what she believed was her husband's spirit. A boy thinking his grandfather was guiding him. But Jesus pulled back the curtain, and I saw the truth. These weren't their loved ones. They were deceptions. Spirits of darkness imitating the dead, sent to confuse, distract, and keep people from turning to God. Satan uses their grief to keep them bound, Jesus said. But I came to set them free. Tears filled my eyes. I had no idea how many were being misled, good people, desperate for hope, reaching in the wrong direction. Jesus turned to me again. You have to tell them, Brandon. Tell them the truth. While there's still time. Friend, if you're still breathing, there's still time for you too. Comment Amen below if you want Jesus to guide you into the light and cover you with his protection. Your comment may be the first step into the door of life. Jesus led me further, not with urgency, but with gravity. I could feel the weight of what he was about to show me. This is not hell, he said, as we entered the next place. But it is where the souls go when they die without choosing me. I expected flames or punishment, but what I felt was something deeper, regret. Tangible, suffocating regret. It wasn't a place of torment in the way we imagine. It was a place of clarity, where every soul remembered exactly what they had ignored. They weren't screaming in pain. They weren't angry at God. They were devastated at themselves. I could feel their thoughts as if they were echoing through the air. Why did I wait? Why did I push him away? I thought I had more time. One man looked at me. I didn't know him, but somehow I saw his whole story. He had been invited to church countless times. He'd watched his mother pray. He'd even cried during a funeral sermon once. But he always told himself, later. And now there was no later. The sorrow here wasn't because God had abandoned them. It was because they had finally realized they were the ones who had walked away. Jesus stood beside me in silence, letting me absorb it. Then he said gently, they remember every opportunity, every whisper of my spirit, every chance to choose me, and every time they turned away. I felt like collapsing. I wanted to scream, this can't be the end. But I knew, this wasn't punishment. It was justice. And justice was quiet. Jesus turned to me. This place is not yet final. But the decision is. This is why I brought you here, to understand the urgency. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. Now I will show you what time really is. And with that, the air around us shifted. I was no longer in a single place. I was in many, all at once. Not physically, but spiritually. I saw moments from my own life playing out like scenes in a theater. But this time, I wasn't the one living them. I was the one watching and understanding. A moment when I helped a stranger push a broken car. A moment when I snapped at Katie over something meaningless. A moment when I ignored the voice in my heart telling me to call my dad. None of those moments felt important at the time. But now, standing with Jesus, I saw what each one carried. Kindness had created ripples. Anger had left scars. Silence had caused distance. Jesus said, time is not measured in hours or years. It's measured in choices. Every moment is a seed. What you plant, you will one day harvest, whether in this life or the next. I broke down. I had wasted so much. So many hours spent chasing things that didn't matter. So many days lived as if eternity wasn't real. And yet, Jesus looked at me with eyes that still held hope. It's not too late, Brandon. That's why I brought you back. You still have time. It struck me, time isn't something we manage. It's something we answer for. You reading this, yes, you're not here by accident. You were meant to hear this. I stood there, trembling, not from fear, but from awe. My soul had seen more in minutes with Jesus than in 52 years on earth. I looked into his eyes one last time, not wanting to leave. I thought I would beg to stay. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew what he had placed in me wasn't meant to stay there. It was meant to be spoken, shared, carried. Jesus, I whispered, my voice cracking, I've failed so many times. Why me? He smiled, not like a man smiles, but like eternity itself bending toward mercy. Because you're willing, Brandon. That's all I need. I wanted to collapse. His words didn't just forgive me, they restored me. In his presence, every wound I'd carried for decades began to close. Not forgotten, redeemed. And then he said something that broke me. Tell them I'm not angry. Tell them I'm waiting. I nodded through tears. I couldn't promise perfection, but I could promise surrender. The light around us softened. I felt a pull, like being drawn back through layers of time and space. And just before everything faded, he spoke again. Brandon, live like eternity matters. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed. Katie was holding my hand, her face soaked with tears. The monitor beeped. Nurses rushed in. The world was noisy again, but inside me, something was completely silent. Still, clear, alive. And now I speak to you. If you've ever felt like you're too far gone, too broken, too late, you're not. Jesus isn't done with you. The doctors called it a medical miracle. 6 minutes without a heartbeat and no brain damage. They used words like spontaneous recovery and rare case. But I knew better. It wasn't a recovery. It was a return, with purpose. The first thing I did when I could speak was whisper, "Get me a Bible." Katie looked at me like I was someone she'd never met, and in a way, she was right. I wasn't the same man. I didn't just survive. I was reborn. In the days that followed, everything changed, not just what I did, but how I saw. The walls of the hospital weren't just walls. They were filled with stories, souls, people Jesus loved. Every nurse, every visitor, every janitor, I looked at them like they were eternal beings in temporary clothes. When I returned home, I couldn't go back to normal. Something inside wouldn't let me. I started waking up earlier, not out of discipline, but hunger. I opened the Bible like a starving man opens bread. I didn't understand everything, but I felt everything. I apologized to Katie. Not just for the fights or the stress, but for all the years I had led our family without spiritual direction. She cried. Not because she was sad, but because she could see it too. The light had returned. I went back to work at the steel plant, but everything felt different. I wasn't just punching in, I was praying in. One afternoon, during break, I told Danny, my supervisor, the whole story. He stared at me in silence, then whispered, "Brandon, I need what you saw." We prayed together right there, by the vending machines. In our work boots, with dirt on our hands, we touched heaven. That day, I realized something. I don't need to be a preacher. I just need to be available. Not everyone wanted to hear it. The first few times I told my story outside the break room, at the grocery store, the gas station, even at a family gathering, I saw it in their eyes. Doubt, discomfort, dismissal. Some people just smiled politely. Others changed the subject. A few laughed. One man at the plant overheard me sharing and said loud enough for the whole floor to hear, "Brandon's lost it, folks. Died and came back a preacher." They laughed. I did not. For a moment, I felt that old instinct rise up, the one that says, "Stay quiet. Don't rock the boat. Keep faith private." But then I remembered his words. "Tell them I'm not angry. Tell them I'm waiting." That was all I needed. Because here's what I've learned. Faith doesn't need applause to be true. It just needs to stand. The more I shared, the more I realized who was really listening. Not the loud ones, not the mockers, but the quiet ones. The ones who leaned in just a little closer. The ones who cried in silence. The ones who messaged me after everyone else had gone. It's not about convincing the whole world. It's about reaching the one heart that's ready. Jesus didn't save me to impress people. He saved me to rescue people. And I'll keep telling this story, even if just one soul says yes. Even if everyone else turns away. Because I know what I saw. And I know who I met. The hardest people to reach are the ones who know you best. They've seen you at your worst. They remember every mistake. They've heard all the apologies before. So when I started telling my family about what happened, what I saw, what Jesus said, some of them didn't say anything at all. They just stared. Some smiled awkwardly. One of my brothers quietly said, "That's good for you," and changed the subject. It hurt more than the laughter at work. Because these were my people. But I didn't push. I just kept living different. Not louder. Just realer. I started praying with Katie every night, not out of routine, but out of hunger. We began reading the Bible together again. The kids noticed. My son, who used to roll his eyes every time church came up, asked me out of nowhere, "Dad, do you think God still talks to people?" I said, "He never stopped." We talked for hours that night. I mostly listened. My daughter left a note on my nightstand that read, "I don't know why, but I feel safe again." I wept. The greatest miracle wasn't that I came back. It's that love came back with me. Not the shallow kind of love, but the kind that chooses, the kind that listens, the kind that stays. And slowly, walls started to fall. My brother, the one who brushed me off, called me a few weeks later. He said, "I don't know what's changed in you, but I want it." Friend, if you're praying for your family, don't give up. They may not listen to your words at first, but they'll notice your light. Comment, "Restore my family," if you believe Jesus can bring healing to your home, no matter how broken it feels. Because I've seen it. And I believe it's coming for you too. It's been 3 months since I died. 6 minutes without breath. 1 encounter with Jesus. And a lifetime of change. I don't have all the answers. I'm not a pastor. I'm not perfect. I still get things wrong. But I know what I saw. And I know who met me. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a vision. It was a rescue. I was a man going through the motions, working, worrying, surviving. I believed in God, casually. I said grace at dinner, showed up at church twice a year. But eternity, that was later. Until I almost ran out of later. Friend, I came back with one message. Jesus is real. Eternity is real. And your choice is real. The Bible says, "It is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment." Hebrews 9 verse 27. There are no second chances after death. No more bargaining. No more hiding. Just truth. Just eternity. And that's why I'm telling you this. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. You are loved. You are seen. You are still breathing, for a reason. Jesus isn't waiting for perfect people. He's waiting for willing people. People who will simply say, "Lord, I need you." So, what will you choose? Right now, right here, you can make the decision that echoes into eternity. Comment, "I choose eternity," if today, you choose to surrender your heart to Jesus and step into the light. He's not angry. He's waiting. And heaven is closer than you think.